Everybody. I wanted to welcome you to the concept of High Point Health Mastermind. And I thank you so much for joining me on this call today. I think one of the biggest things that we're up against is lack of community support. And I know a lot of us right now aren't getting that from our friends and our families at the levels that we might need to really do what we want with our health. And to have the kind of support that I know we all experience here in the office in a new way is what we're working on. So the 4 pillars of health have come forward with a strength and a furious nature, like a relentless nature in the last few years. But this is a concept I've been exploring since my very first steps on this journey. And I start here because it's been a lonely one. Like, from the moment I started learning about how to bring more health into my home, I got resistance from my husband, from my mother-in-law, from my parents, from my siblings, my friends, from it's really hard to eat and find restaurants that take anything into consideration that I feel is there's a lot of things that are important to me that aren't taken into consideration in those settings. And that can be lonely. And of course, when my health declined, I found answers in places that most people don't even know to look. And that did eventually lead me down the path to expand my scope and be able to offer this work that I offer now in office at the procedure clinic. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more to my journey. There's a lot more that I've learned. There's a lot more that I have to share. And those of you that work more closely with me or that know me a little bit more personally because of the nature of maybe our work together, you're probably listening to this and you were invited into this group because I know that with the like-minded community, we can all be better versions of ourselves. With accountability, we can all be better versions of ourselves. And the 4 pillars of health are something that none of us can deny. You can't get around it. We have to address these things in our lives and figure out how we're going to tackle it, and to level up and to show up is probably the hardest part. And I always say that about hot yoga, like the hardest part is getting there, right? Once I get there, it's usually okay. I'll get through it. And I always feel better on the other side and fine. But just showing up can be really hard. And sometimes I'll kick and scream not to go in right up until I've arrived. Like I really want to turn around. And there have been times in my life when I do turn around and I don't face something that is really hard and I don't lean into courage. But most of you know me that in this new space I'm in now, and I'm living a version of myself that is really facing fear fiercely. And I'm noticing fear and I'm leaning into it, and I'm growing really quickly because of it. So I want to invite as many of you that are ready, willing, and wanting to join me to be a part of that process. And the number one thing that I've done is I've become more accountable to myself by showing up in a few different communities that support me. And the mentorship that I receive and the camaraderie that I have because of the self-investment I've made into mastermind groups and communities like this it's been unmatched. And that is something I'm really excited to bring to Kiltaya Natural Medicine, which is kind of the corporation that Body Stress Solutions does business under. And we're creating this as a completely separate idea and concept where you'll have access to me in the community and separate from the procedure clinic. So this will be a lot of our virtual experience, of course, but I am also going to create live experiences. And my goal is to have a couple of retreats a year available for everybody to attend if you choose. and to do all kinds of classes and bring in experts and things like that. So this will hopefully evolve in a really organic way in the first few months. And right now, I want to introduce you to the 4 pillars really briefly, and then over the next couple of days, I'll introduce these concepts much more deeply. So the 4 pillars are eat well, move well, think well, and sleep well. The what we eat is our fuel, literally, for our performance on every level. If we're not putting the things in, the right amount of food, the right kind of food, the energy that we need, and vital food, fresh food, it's going to affect you. An athlete might come off of gluten just because it will bring 3 more inches on his vertical, even if he doesn't have a gluten problem. It's pretty powerful. Most of us have experienced that come into my office. Powerful food choices directly affects the power that you have in your body to rebuild and recharge. So we're going to focus a lot on how we experience that in the world, and how we engage with our appetite and with our food choices, and how do we eat well for our own individual constitutions. Moving well. Most of us make a lot of excuses about moving well around time. So this is something we'll have to work at and figure out a way to conquer that limitation that only exists in the mind, that we don't have time to move our bodies. We all have time to move our bodies and to make a self-investment in ourselves that allows for all the movement that your body needs. It is a choice. And I think to step back into our power on reclaiming not only the decision to either invest in your body and your care, your self-care that way, your self-investment that way every day, or not, and to just know what you're doing is really, really important. So, and the group will experiment with lots of ways of encouraging yourself to be consistent with your plan, whatever that is, for moving well. And then thinking well. So the whole mastermind will be centered around mindset and empowering yourself by removing limitations that only exist in the mind. This is by far the most powerful thing I'm doing in my own work right now. And it's allowing me to reach personal growth and transformation milestones at a much faster pace. So that's something we'll focus very heavily on. And I have a lot of resources for all of this. So you guys are going to get all of that. We're going to have a ton of fun doing it. And I'm really excited about the mindset piece. It's just going to strengthen your ability to walk through the courage phase on the pieces that are hard and the places that are trickier. And then the sleeping well. So everybody knows me, and that if I could get around this one, I would. Sleeping is just one of those things we all have to do. So whatever sleeping well looks like for you, being on a regular bedtime and having a rhythm that your body can count on, and that we can count on to do our restoration, you will be able to show up as a better version of yourself. And if we want to be elite in our performance in any way, whether it's professionally or in our relationships, or in our finances, in our whatever it is, whatever part of life you're focusing on, it's we're going to have a much better experience if we're giving ourselves that time that we need to rest and restore. So sleep is something we'll also hold ourselves accountable to planning for success and finding ways to execute that. So I will be sending out recordings on the each pillar, diving a little bit more into opportunities, resources, what I'm planning, and some of the things that we'll get into there. Why it's so important to me is the number one thing I hope to impress, and I'll do that for each pillar over the next several emails and days. Thanks for joining me for this introduction. I really commend you for making it to this point where you're even being invited to do something like this. There's usually an interview process that's very natural for any kind of like high level mastermind, which is what I want this to be. And I just know that you're a great fit. So I hope that we see you in there. And thank you so much for your support. I just love you guys.